Two people eat the exact same diet, same calories, same macros, same amount of exercise. One of them stores the extra fat on their hips and thighs, annoying but harmless. The other stores it wrapped around their liver, their pancreas, and their intestines. And within 5 years, that person is pre-diabetic. Same input, completely different outcome. For a long time, we assumed this came down to luck or genetics, or just some bodies are different. But that's not actually the full story. Your body isn't storing fat randomly. It's running a ranking system, a strict hormonally controlled priority list that decides exactly where every extra calorie goes in a very specific order. And once you understand that order, a lot of things that used to feel mysterious, why your belly is the last place fat leaves, why some people never get a fat belly at all, why stress seems to move fat around your body, start making a lot more sense. Today, we're breaking down that ranking system, level by level. Here's the thing most people get backwards. Your body doesn't see fat as the enemy. Fat is the single safest way your body has ever found to store energy. Gram for gram, fat holds more than double the energy of stored carbohydrate. If your body tried to store the same amount of energy as glycogen instead of fat, you'd need to carry around roughly 4 times the weight in water alone, just to hold on to it. So fat isn't a design flaw. It's a survival tool that's kept humans alive through famine, illness, and winters with no food for tens of thousands of years. But not all fat storage is created equal. Some storage sites are cheap, flexible, and safe. Others are expensive, dangerous, and only used as a last resort. Your body knows the difference, and it has a strict order of operations for filling them. Think of it less like a single storage tank and more like a building with multiple floors. The ground floor fills up first. Only when the ground floor is full does your body start sending fat upstairs, to floors that were never really designed to hold it. The fat your body wants to use first is called subcutaneous fat, the layer just under your skin. This is the fat you can pinch: hips, thighs, backs of the arms, the outer layer of the belly. Subcutaneous fat cells, called adipocytes, are basically balloons. When you eat more energy than you burn, these cells don't multiply overnight. They inflate. One fat cell can expand to hold roughly the same energy as an entire tank of gas, relatively speaking, before it hits its limit. This is the body's preferred storage location for a simple reason. It's metabolically quiet. Subcutaneous fat doesn't sit next to your organs. It doesn't interfere with insulin signaling in your liver. And it doesn't pump out the same volume of inflammatory signals that other fat depots do. It's basically inert storage, a warehouse, not a construction site in the middle of your body. This is also why some people can gain a noticeable amount of weight and look healthy doing it, soft, round, evenly distributed, while their blood work stays completely normal. Their subcutaneous fat cells have room to expand, so the body never has to move to floor 2. The catch: that room is not infinite, and how much room you have is decided almost entirely by hormones and genetics, not effort or willpower, which is exactly why the next levels matter so much. This is where the adipose expandability hypothesis comes in. Is one of the more important ideas in modern obesity research, and one almost nobody outside of endocrinology has heard of. The theory is simple. Every person has a personal ceiling on how much subcutaneous fat their body is willing or able to store. Once that ceiling is hit, incoming fat has nowhere left to go on the ground floor, so your body is forced to send it somewhere else. Somewhere it was never meant to be stored long term. That somewhere else is called ectopic fat, and this is where things start to get genuinely dangerous. Ectopic fat gets deposited directly inside and around your organs, your liver, your pancreas, your heart, even inside your muscle tissue. This is the fat that shows up as a fatty liver diagnosis in someone who isn't even significantly overweight. It's the fat that infiltrates the pancreas and starts interfering with insulin production. It's the fat that wraps around your heart and is linked to arrhythmia risk independent of your total body weight. And here's the part that changes how you should think about this entire topic. Two people can have the exact same body weight, same BMI, even the same waist size, and one of them can have a liver full of fat while the other has a completely clean liver. The difference isn't how much fat they're carrying. It's whether their subcutaneous ground floor ran out of room, forcing the overflow into their organs. This is also why belly fat has such a bad reputation. But even that needs a footnote, because not all belly fat is the same category, which brings us to level 3. Visceral fat is the fat that sits deep inside your abdominal cavity, wrapped around your intestines and internal organs. Not the fat you can pinch on the surface of your belly, but the fat behind the muscle wall. Your body treats visceral fat storage as close to a last resort. It's metabolically the most active fat tissue in your body. It releases far more inflammatory chemicals, called cytokines, than subcutaneous fat does, and it sits with direct access to your liver through a blood vessel called the portal vein. That means anything visceral fat releases goes almost straight into your liver's processing system. So why does the body use it at all if it's so costly? Because when your safer storage options are maxed out, your body still has to put the extra energy somewhere, and visceral fat is one of the few flexible spaces left. It's essentially emergency overflow storage, fast to fill, fast to empty, but expensive to maintain. This is actually good news buried inside bad news. Because visceral fat is designed to be quickly mobilized, it also tends to be the fastest fat to respond to changes in diet, sleep, stress, and insulin sensitivity, often faster than subcutaneous fat. It's frequently the first fat lost when someone improves their metabolic health, which is part of why belly fat seems to respond dramatically to small lifestyle shifts in a way that stubborn hip or thigh fat often doesn't. So what actually determines where you personally sit on this ranking system? How much room you have on the ground floor before overflow starts? 3 main factors. Factor 1, sex hormones. Estrogen strongly favors subcutaneous fat storage, particularly around the hips and thighs. This is one of the reasons premenopausal women, on average, carry a higher percentage of body fat than men at the same health level, while often showing better metabolic markers. It's not a flaw in the system. It's estrogen actively directing fat into the safer storage zone. This is also exactly why fat distribution tends to shift after menopause, when estrogen drops. Fat storage patterns often move toward the visceral abdominal region, even without a change in diet. Testosterone works differently, generally favoring a more visceral and upper body distribution pattern to begin with, which is part of why men are statistically more prone to abdominal fat accumulation at a given body weight. Factor 2. Cortisol. Cortisol is your primary stress hormone, and it has a very specific relationship with fat storage. Chronically elevated cortisol appears to redirect fat preferentially toward visceral storage. This has been shown in both animal and human studies. Visceral fat tissue has a higher density of cortisol receptors than subcutaneous fat, meaning it's more responsive to cortisol's signal to store energy. This is a big part of the mechanism behind stress belly. It's not that stress uniquely creates new fat out of nowhere. It's that chronic stress appears to bias where existing extra energy gets deposited. Factor 3. Insulin sensitivity. This is the piece most people never hear about. Insulin resistance doesn't just affect blood sugar. It changes how your fat cells behave. Subcutaneous fat cells that become insulin resistant lose some of their ability to expand and store new fat safely. When that happens, the ground floor effectively shrinks, even if you haven't gained any additional weight, pushing more incoming energy toward ectopic and visceral storage instead. This creates a frustrating loop. Visceral and ectopic fat themselves worsen insulin resistance, which then further reduces the safe storage capacity of subcutaneous fat, which pushes even more fat toward the dangerous depots. Once you see fat storage as a ranking system instead of a single tank filling up, a lot of confusing things suddenly make sense. Why the scale can stay the same while your waist measurement climbs, your total fat isn't changing much, but your ranking system is shifting more of it toward the visceral level, often due to stress, poor sleep, or declining insulin sensitivity. Why some people who are overweight by BMI standards have completely normal metabolic blood work. Their subcutaneous ground floor simply has more room, so the overflow into dangerous ectopic storage never happens. Why belly fat is often the first fat to noticeably shrink when someone improves their sleep, lowers chronic stress, or improves insulin sensitivity. Because visceral fat is the most metabolically active and the fastest to mobilize once the pressure-pushing fat toward it is removed. This also reframes what actually matters. The goal was never really lose fat as a single, flat objective. The more useful goal is protecting your ground floor, keeping your subcutaneous storage flexible, and your insulin sensitivity high enough that your body never needs to open the overflow floors in the first place. You can't change your sex hormones or your genetics on command, but the two levers that most directly influence where your body sends fat are the two that respond fastest to lifestyle change: cortisol and insulin sensitivity. Sleep is probably the single most underrated lever here. Even a handful of nights of shortened sleep measurably raises cortisol and reduces insulin sensitivity the next day, directly nudging your body's ranking system toward visceral storage. Chronic, unmanaged stress does the same thing over a longer timeline, not because of willpower or emotional weakness, but because of a direct hormonal mechanism acting on where fat physically gets deposited. And improving insulin sensitivity through consistent movement, particularly after meals, and avoiding the kind of chronic overfeeding that keeps insulin elevated around the clock, keeps your subcutaneous ground floor able to do its job so your body never has to reach for the dangerous overflow storage at all. Your body was never randomly deciding where to put extra fat. It's been running the same ranking system this whole time. Ground floor first, overflow only when it has to, dangerous storage only as a last resort. The real question was never just, how much fat am I storing? It's which floor it's ending up on. And now you know exactly what decides that. If this changed how you think about body fat, subscribe for more videos breaking down what's actually happening inside your body. Not the surface level advice, the real mechanisms underneath it.